Ron is an author, speaker, life coach, and sales coach. And he's also a licensed spiritual practitioner that studied under Reverend Shell and Reverend Emil at the Center for Spiritual Living, Cape Coral. However, Ron does come to see us once in a while, but his license is now in Sarasota at the Cultural Coast, one of our sister centers. So Ron's popular book, Getting Unstuck, The 9 Keys to Creating More Prosperity, Fulfillment, and Joy, is a practical self-coaching guide to help the reader live a more self-aware and empowered life. He and his book have been featured on numerous podcasts as well as AM and FM radio and talk shows across the nation. I'm impressed, Ron. Okay, I would like to, without further ado, we want to hear what Ron has to say. So please welcome Ron Frost.
Thank you, Pam, for the wonderful introduction, even though I wrote it. So, the paradox is, it's all perfect. It's all, and you know what? I even forget sometimes what I write. So thank you so much. And one more time for the Big Love Band. Always the perfect music, the perfect lyrics, and really in today with the one paradox that I'm facing at this moment is the title of my speech is Embracing Paradox, and yet I forgot to tell everybody here at the center that I changed the title to this, because it was originally The Tyranny of the Or, and somehow the word tyranny just didn't resonate with me. And in a meditation, I came up with this idea of embracing paradox because I thought that would be totally cool, and I forgot to tell everybody. So it's all good, it's all perfect, it's all aligned. And even in today's world, with so many things that are going on, that maybe we're standing back as a witnesser of the outer world and starting to question things. You know, the paradoxes that we see that just don't seem to make sense to us. And everything that's going on in our inner world, we have these things that are going on. Some people are being separated even from a relationship, or relationship with a work, or changing career, or suddenly no career, or maybe moving from one location to another location, or suddenly finding themselves without a place to live, and then trying to figure all that out. That really the paradox of everything that is going on, it comes down to how do we embrace it? Because paradoxes have existed in the past, they exist today, and they will continue to exist in the future. And it comes to the understanding of what is the best way that we can lovingly embrace, understand, and integrate and evolve through this thing that we know as paradoxes, things that happen in our life that maybe shake us up and wake us up at a deep core level. And so embracing was the word that just kind of came to my mind. And I've been putting into a practice these basic 4 concepts of how to best embrace anything, whether you're embracing change, whether you're embracing paradox, whether you're embracing something that's going on in your life, or trying to just rationalize what's going on in the world. Because I believe today we are seeing an evolution of a greater sense of light being present on this planet, but at the same time, we're also seeing a greater sense of darkness. And it is as if you suddenly turned on the light in the room, you would realize that there was dirt on the floor. Or if you open up the window, and if you've ever seen light come in and you suddenly realize, oh, I need the dust. The light shines so brightly that it makes apparent the dark shadows. The dirt was always there. The dust was always there. But it's became illuminated, and it's our consciousness that can shift that. And it's really shifted from within. Because it's not something that we can go out there and change. It's more of the raising of the consciousness within ourselves. And to be able to embrace paradox is really one of the best things that we can do as a person that is evolving within our own life, but also evolving within the world. Because we're all part of that divine matrix of the universe. We're intricately plugged in, and everything that changes within us changes the outer world. So to embrace paradox, number one, I have a practice I put into place is called to be open, to be open. To be open at the top, like Ernest Holmes says. And number two is to let go. Sometimes we just kind of need to let go of something that may not be working for us anymore. And the third one is to come from a higher awareness. Because if we can be open and we can let go, if we can shift ourselves to a higher awareness and looking at things perhaps maybe a little differently, what would love do in this situation? And the last one is to have compassionate understanding. Because as the song says, everything is beautiful, or everyone is beautiful in their own way. And that even when we're in our own mind of unraveling paradoxes, it's not our decision to try to have to change the other person. And I've been there. I've always trying to, get everybody to think the way I am. But the truth is, we can compassionately understand everybody as a spiritual being, and they're in their own journey, in their own place, and it's all perfect. And everything is beautiful in its own way. So being open is sometimes, it's kind of like realizing that you have to do some things different. Realizing that maybe it's a different thought, a different idea, something that you're open to seeing, even though it may not have been the thing you've been told. And sometimes the change is uncomfortable too. It's not, when you meet something that is something you've never done before, never believed before, wasn't working the way you thought it was going to work, you're busting up against sometimes your own inner comfort zone, and yet to be able to embrace that is part of the embracing of change. And I relate this to a situation where my daughter's dog got loose. I know last time I was here, some of you may not have been here, but I had an invasion of 2 more dogs. We have 3 dogs, 3 cats. We had 2, now we have 3. And my daughter came down, and she actually brought Axel and Cooper. And I had them displayed up here, and it was wonderful just to have these extra animals in the house. And Ashley told me, Dad, whatever you do, don't let Cooper out. He's an escape artist, and if he gets out, you're never going to be able to get him back. Well, after leaving here and going back, I forget, somehow I walked up, I opened the door, no adults were home, and all of a sudden a flash. Guess who it was? Cooper. It was Cooper. Now, what would you do? I shut the door so no other dogs could get out. And here I am, I'm terrified because my daughter said, this is the one dog you don't want to let out. What would you do?
Start yelling, Cooper!
Right? You wouldn't yell Fred. You'd yell Cooper. You'd yell the dog's name. And that's what I did. And the dog was at the end of the driveway, and the dog just started to dart down to the next neighbor's yard. And before you know it, no matter how much I yelled Cooper didn't come to me. Cooper ran. And now was running down the middle of the road, and luckily there was no traffic. And so I did what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes when we confront changes in our life, the ways that we used to do things, and we're trying to be open to some new idea, you have to consult with somebody. So I consulted with my daughter Ashley, who was about an hour away, who couldn't come home to help get Cooper. And on the phone, she's telling me, Dad, Cooper is the name. We just got him from the Humane Society about a couple of weeks ago. We gave him the name Cooper. He doesn't know his name. Talk about being open to change. Dad, try calling him Big Boy. Comfort zone, right? I got my neighbors around me, and here I am. And then the second thing, Dad, you're too tall. You got to get down. You got to get down. So running through the neighborhood, and at the end of our neighborhood, if you live or aware of Sarasota, we have various parks, and the park is called Bee Ridge Park, and there's 2 baseball fields, there's a volleyball court, there's basketball courts, and there's pavilions, and it was filled with people. And here I am running through this, shouting "Big Boy" as low as I could get. Well, the truth is everything ended up, there was actually a couple of boys that's what they did. They fell on the ground, and it was like the perfect moment where the dog came right up to them, and all I just said, grab his collar. grab his collar. And I was successfully able to get Cooper home. But that's the way it is in life. Sometimes when we're open to something, we have to be open all the way. We have to be willing to dare ourselves. We have to be willing to go outside of our comfort zone. We have to be willing to shout the word big boy and get down on all fours if we have to. Because that's the way our life is going to change. And in embracing paradox, it's really knowing that we're embracing it and on many different levels. And sometimes it's just not comfortable. The second thing is letting go. Because if we're open to something new, sometimes there's an old pattern of belief that we have to let go. And sometimes these patterns have been integrated within us. We've come to this planet really knowing nothing. We had an innate spirit, but we really have everything's been taught to us. And it's these tangled up belief systems evolving around so many different things, whether it's around the topic of spirituality or the topic of religion or the topic of politics or the topic of doing it this way or doing it that way. And so these become anchored into our belief, and we carry these through. And we teach these to our own kids as well. We don't necessarily, they're in these inherited beliefs that have been around for so long that when we come into a system, we find ourselves confronted with these. And in an awakening moment, we start to question them. And that's the paradox. And so one of the paradoxes is this paradox of, well, I have to work hard, or I have to earn, like the word earn. I have to earn my value. I have to earn my love. I have to earn my respect. I have to earn my living. And it's that heaviness of having to, stress out over this thing like I have to work so hard because I don't necessarily have the abundance, right? Well, it's my natural state of being. I don't really have love. No, it's my natural state of being. So it's this understanding of allowing the thing that's really the presence within the universe, presence within us, and being able to play with it in a different way, and letting go of a paradigm or a belief system that's just maybe not serving us, or at least getting out there far enough to experiment with something new that may work for us if we don't even know. So for me, I had dealt with this even before I was really in the Center for Spiritual Living. Years ago, I was in sales. Some of you who know my career, I was in sales, and I had a kind of a rough beginning, but then I got, going fairly well, and all of a sudden, probably halfway through my career, I hit like this major slump. Has anybody ever hit a major slump? We hit slumps in our life. It's like nothing's working out. And here I was in my company. I had been like number one in my company, really proud of it, and trained other people. And then here, my sales are like zero, and they had been that way. And actually, they shifted territories, so I had to go out and make all new relationships, and it just was like nothing was working. And at the same time, we were paid on a draw. Well, we were paid on commission, but you received what's called a draw. A draw was a loan from the company that you would reimburse the company back once you sold enough and you got a commission. And so now I'm in a situation where I'm not only selling, I actually owe money to my company. And so the paradox that I had to let go of was, the concept of having to work harder, the concept of having to call more, close more, do these things that we would call that can bring more business home. And so at the moment, I decided I was going to just take a break. I don't know, some sort of idea that came up in me about taking a road trip on my bicycle. And I wanted to go somewhere. And I ended up getting a conversation with my college roommate, who I hadn't talked to in like 10 years. And he was kind of in that same state. And we kind of came up with this concept like, well, why don't we could get our bicycles and we could backpack or take our tent. And both of us decided we were going to take like a map of the United States, put it on a wall, blindfold ourselves, throw a dart, and figure out where it lands is going to be where we're going to ride. And it turns out I think mine landed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. And so he was the winner. It came close enough to Yellowstone Park, so that's where we went. And for me to let go of the world that I was in, completely surrender to that, and to be able to dive into an experience, into an adventure was the best thing possible. My college roommate, John, actually didn't even have a bicycle. He had to borrow it from a friend. We had to put them in cardboard boxes and get plane tickets out to Jackson Hole Airport and figure our way out of reassembling these bikes and getting down to the only campground in Jackson Hole. And then we met so many wonderful people. It was an adventure of a lifetime. We hiked the Middle Teton. We rode our bikes all around Yellowstone. We had vistas. We had geysers. We had the hot springs. There's a tremendous amount of wildlife if you've ever been there. You know, the conversations, the people we meet, the conversations around campfires. This is a longing memory that I've had still to this day, and it was an adventure of a lifetime. You know, even on skinny little tires coming over the Continental Divide in an ice storm and trying to figure out your way out as you come around a corner and there's like a herd of buffalo coming across. Or cycling down paths and realizing that you just passed something called a rattlesnake just inches from your bike. Everything was adventurous, even down to the point of one time when we had this storm that came in. We rode through it, but we got to our campsite and we're like drenched wet, all our clothes, everything was like a total mess. And we decided to hitchhike. We talked to a couple people who gave us a ride outside of Yellowstone Park to West Yellowstone, Montana. If you've ever been there, it's like going back into the West. They still got dirt roads, and they tie their horses up to saloons. It's like going back in time, only to try to find the only one laundromat that's in the middle of Yellowstone, West Yellowstone, Montana, and have a couple of people come up to us and invite us to a cowboy wedding. Not stereotyping, but they were wearing cowboy hats, cowboy boots, and Levi's, and some of the women were too. So, and here we are, John and Ron, in the middle of this, still drenched wet, wearing our spandex bike suits. You can't make this stuff even if you tried. Everything and letting go came back to the experience of a lifetime. And it's when I finally got back to the office, I realized I actually had everything had gone back to like, my debt was paid off, so I didn't owe the company anymore. And my sales that had come through during that time actually hit this thing they called a kicker, where they kick in 2%, which very rarely happens. And I got hit that goal, and actually there was that extra 2% that kicked in. So it was like my best month ever sales-wise. Sometimes we have to let go. Sometimes we have to allow to play with the paradox of our life. When we get in these entrenched feelings like I got to work harder, I got to achieve more, I'm pushing myself, you know, the goals. I need more goals. Sometimes we need to let go. We need to celebrate. We need to take that adventure of life. And think about it. What is the adventure in your life that you've been putting off? What is the ingrained thinking pattern of the thing that you may have to let go? Where do you have to take that magical footstep into the unknown, knowing that the universe will create the earth beneath you, the ideas that are within you that you wish to bring out into the world? Sometimes you have to let go of the old patterns to move forward into that bliss, into that adventure of life. The other thing is being able to have a higher level of awareness. Because as things start to happen in the world, as we start to see things, we start to say, you know, sometimes this just doesn't make sense. Sometimes this feeling of, you know, conflicting or arguing or battling, whether it's in our own mind or our own heart or on a battlefield of life, doesn't make sense. And we come from a higher level of awareness. We realize that the human nature isn't to battle. Human nature is to love. The default programming, for any of the people who are into computer science, the default programming of a computer is the operating system. It's the way it works. The operating system of humanity is love. The virus is everything else that's been taught and that's been brought into it, that's been convoluted and put against it, that's actually been absorbed as a false matrix, as a false program, as a false belief system. And that's where the conflict comes. That's where the conflict comes. So when we separate from that in a paradox of letting go and being open to the consciousness of love, we can shift that from coming from a higher awareness. It's like having the marionette dolls. Are you familiar with marionette dolls with the strings? So you have the marionette doll play, and we have two marionette dolls that are battling and fighting to the point where they look up and they realize there's strings to the same hand of control. And then they just sever the strings through the higher conscious awareness that I am here to love. I'm not here to battle. It's everything I've been taught and maybe be told. It's these hard lines that maybe I grew up with. As you know, I've shared this before. I've Republican father, Democrat mom, Catholic mom, Protestant father, grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, married a Muslim. So I've been blessed with this ability to kind of like be very open to knowing that the love is really the general principle of all things. And yet we have constructs around it. And sometimes we start to, as Dawn was sharing in her message, which was a brilliant message, by the way. If you missed it, go to YouTube. But she talked about her friend's experience and talked about taking sides and talking about, what would love do? Because if you come from that higher consciousness of awareness of the state of love, everything else breaks down. Nothing else really matters. Which moves into this last practice, which is the practice of being able to be understanding, compassionately understanding. Because the truth is, nobody's really right or wrong. We may think that we're right or wrong. I may have certain things that I want to share, but it's not my job to be able to, teach. I'm here to love. It's not my job to change. I'm here to love. Change happens within myself. Evolution happens within myself. And everybody's on their own spiritual evolution. Everybody's waking up in their own way, in their own time. But we're all seeds of greatness. We're all seeds of the divine. So nobody's higher or lower than anybody else. And it's kind of like the sleepover, where that one kid wakes up and he wants to bounce and scream and whatever, and the mom goes, shh, come here. Let everybody else be where they are. And that's fundamentally, sometimes the most difficult thing to do, but that sometimes is the best thing, to compassionately understanding that everything is beautiful, everyone is beautiful in their own way. And to be okay with it, even when we may disagree, even when we may have a totally different way of looking at things. Fani, my wife, shared a story when she was growing up in Indonesia, and she was like a young teenager. And the adventures of a young teenager is to go out to the movies, to go out shopping, to go out with friends, to just get out there. This was one of the most exciting things. And she went over her best friend's house, and her best friend had paper and scissors and wanted to play paper dolls. And Fani's like in her mind, like, we're teenagers now. We're going to go out. We're going to go to the mall. We're going to go have fun. We're going to do all these other things. We've outgrown paper dolls. That's for kids. And so I asked her, I said, well, what did you do? She's my friend. I played paper dolls. Compassionate understanding is realizing we're not in a rush through spiritual evolution. We can be conscious of where everybody is. We can love them where they are. We can love the world where it is, because it really is that seed of love that changes everything. It's being, as Ernest Holmes says, for something but against nothing. And sometimes we become so strong in our for that we develop an against. All throughout Sarasota, there's these signs against hate. And I looked at it and I did a double take. I said, well, isn't that being hating hate? And if you said for love, would anybody really understand what you're saying? But the truth is, metaphysically, if we're to evolve, it is to be for something, but yet not against anything, to compassionately understand the world and everybody where they are. And we can even reverse that equation and take it inward, and we can know that the universe is for us and therefore could never be against us. And so I'll leave you with the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, which was, Thich Nhat Hanh, as you know, is, as many of you may not know, he's a Buddhist monk that actually is He's got some of the most brilliant writing, some of the most brilliant teaching. And I think the interview that I saw it's an older interview. But the one thing that he shared in this interview, when he was asked two distinctly different questions, but he had the same one-word answer. And the first question was, what is the cause of all pain, all suffering, and all war that's going on in the world? Again, this is an older interview. And Thich Nhat Hanh responded with consciousness. The next question was, what is the one thing that's going to change it all, to bring the world and unite the world and be able to have people be peaceful and loving and understanding and togetherness? Same answer. Consciousness. We are the seeds of the light that are here to evolve the world. Through this process of being open, letting go, being able to come to a higher sense of awareness, and to compassionately love everything and everyone. And it is through this understanding that, as Ernest Holmes says, to be for something against nothing. And if enough consciously awake people come together with an open heart of love and begin to see the world the way they wish they wanted to be, we can create heaven on earth. It's a law. It's physics. It's to come from that paradox of paradoxes to know that it's not so much a state of doing, it's a state of being. And if we can resonate on that level, we have everything that can shift this into the most beautiful world ever. Let me take this into prayer. As I realize this truth that everything is beautiful, that there is this divine essence, this beauty, this light, this love that surrounds, that exists, that lives within the presence of all things, of all life. This too is my presence. This too is the presence of everybody that is sitting here within this sanctuary or online. This is the presence of all humanity. And as I know that this consciousness exists, this is that evolution, that being able to embrace the paradox of life, to be able to accept it in an open heart of love, being able to be consciously aware at any moment that we can choose to be open, choose to let go, choose to embrace from a higher sense of awareness, and choose to be compassionately loving in every moment. These are the seeds of love. These are the seeds of light. This is the seeds of the higher level of consciousness that's being birthed into this community right here and right now. I surrender this prayer. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you.